from Studio D. Welcome to Dove Point Bible Study, and we're so glad you joined us. And today we start a new chapter in the highly symbolic and highly prophetic book of Zechariah chapter 5. So if you want to go there, that's where we're going, which has to do with us today. It was written 2,500 years ago, but it has to do with us today and our immediate future, seen by the prophet Zechariah in the 6th and 7th vision, that will teach us all about the great harlot of the end times, who it is, what it is, and how it functions. So, with all that in mind, Zechariah chapter 5, verse 1, and it reads, "Then I turned and lifted up mine eyes, and looked, and behold, a flying roll. Now, you don't live in the Ozarks, then you don't know what I'm talking about. But if you lived here down south of Springfield, is a restaurant called Lambert's, the home of flying rolls. Okay, so this is not a flying dinner roll like you would get at the Lambert's restaurant. This roll is actually a scroll that the Bible was written on in Zechariah's time, and that is what Zechariah is seeing here. He sees the books of Moses printed on a flying scroll that is flying. You'll see this in a minute. It's flying between heaven and earth. And this flying book is really more like a flying billboard. It's huge, that everyone on the earth can see. And this flying scroll is the prophet's 6th vision. Verse 2, "And he," the angel, "said unto me, What seest thou, Zechariah? And I answered, I see a flying roll. The length thereof is 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof is 10 cubits. In today's standard measurements, that's 15 feet by 30 feet, which just happens to be the cargo bin size of what was our space shuttle Challenger, whose mission it was to deploy communication satellites into orbit around the earth for everyone on the earth to receive from. And this flying roll that the prophet sees is able to deliver a message to anyone, anywhere on the face of the earth. You'll see that in a moment. So the prophet sees this flying scroll, this flying billboard, and it has a message on it for all to see. But what is that message? Verse 3, "Then said he unto me, This is the curse." And that's what's seen on the flying billboard. The curse of God's law. This is the curse, and the angel said, that goes forth over the face of the whole earth. For everyone that stealeth shall be cut off, and on this side according to it. And everyone that sweareth, that's everyone that tells lies and gossips, shall be cut off as on that side according to it. Cut off from what? Cut off from God. If you don't get straightened out, you'll lose your eternal life. You're cut off from God and cut off from something else while you live in the flesh life. You're cut off from the blessings of God. And the actions of those that steal and lie are making reference to God's entire recording of all the curses that will come on anyone for breaking God's laws that were very clearly written by Moses in the book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, beginning with verses 15 through 62. That's where you find the curses. Now, the blessings of God are also recorded in Deuteronomy chapter 28. They're found in verses 1 through 14. And the blessings are what you receive for being obedient to God. But this in chapter 5 is talking about the curse of God that goes forth over the face of the whole earth. And you should read all of Deuteronomy chapter 28 on your own time. Everyone should read it, okay? Why? So you will know what those curses are, all of them, and why they come. But for right now, I'm going to read just the opening verses to the curses, beginning in verse 15. And you don't have to go there if you don't want to, but you can if you want to. Then we're going to go right back to Zechariah chapter 5. Deuteronomy 15 reads, "But it shall come to pass," not maybe, it's going to happen, God said, "if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God, to observe to do all of his commandments and his statutes, which I command thee this day, that all these curses shall come upon thee. Cursed shall thou be in the city. Cursed shall thou be in the field. Cursed shall be your basket and your store. Cursed shall be the fruit of your body, your land, and your animals. Cursed shall be everything you set your hand to until the day you die." That's just how it begins, okay? And he says you'll put up with this till the day you die, because he goes on to say, you have forsaken my commandments, and therefore you have forsaken me, God said. And it goes on and gets worse from there on, clear to verse 62. Everyone needs to read them. Everyone in the whole country needs to read Deuteronomy chapter 28. Now, God does not have to constantly orchestrate the blessing or the curse. In other words, he's not up there leaning over the banisters of heaven saying, well, little Johnny did this, curse him. Oh, no, he did good, bless him. No, he doesn't have to stand up there and orchestrate the blessings on an individual basis, because he set those laws in motion long, long ago. In other words, they're automatic. They're like gravity. You know, gravity can be your best friend if you're out of gas and you're rolling downhill towards a gas station. Gravity's your friend that day. But gravity can be your worst enemy if you're up on a 10-foot step ladder and you make a misstep, and down to the ground you go. So it can be good or bad. Therefore, it is you and I that determines which one of these two, either the blessing or the cursing, is going to fall on us. We decide this, okay? For our God is no respecter of persons. He doesn't put anybody in front of anybody else. And this not only goes for individuals, but this also goes for nations. Are you listening, America? Now back to Zechariah and verse 4, chapter 5, verse 4. God speaking. And he's going to leave this in no uncertain terms what's going to happen. God speaking. "I will bring it forth, saith the Lord of hosts." And what is it that he's bringing forth? You got it. The curse. To who? "And it," the curse, "shall enter into the house of the thief, and into the house of him that sweareth falsely by my name." And how might that curse enter into their houses in this generation? Through the television, the internet, and the phone, which are picking up their signal from where? From a satellite, a flying billboard that is broadcasting and pushing mostly what the four horns from Zechariah chapter 1 are putting and pushing forth, which are lies and disobedience to God. And it's happening today before our very eyes. Is it not? Sure it is. And if you buy into their lies, then the curse that comes along with that life, let's finish verse 4, shall remain in the midst of his house, and shall consume it with the timber thereof and the stones thereof, if they don't repent. Now, if they repent, they can get rid of that curse. In other words, if they live by the curse, they're going to die by the curse. Okay? That's the bottom line. And that's God speaking. Okay? Verse 5. And I said, what is it? And he said, this is an ephah that goes forth. Now, what's an ephah? Okay? E-P-H-A-H. Think bushel basket and you've got it. Okay? But this particular basket is a flying basket. Continue verse 6. And he said, moreover, this is their resemblance through all the earth. The word resemblance in the Hebrew language means the appearance to the eye. In other words, it's what something looks like, also known as its aspect. So what we're seeing here is the sin aspect that's tied to this flying basket as it orbits the earth. So this billboard not only shows the curse, okay, but it also shows what and who it is that's bringing forth the sin aspect that brings on the curse. Does that make sense? Amen. Verse 7. And behold, there was lifted up a talent of lead. And this is the woman, it says, that sitteth in the midst of the ephah, the basket. So this is a flying basket with a woman sitting in the middle of the basket. And this talent of lead, which weighs 120 pounds, is a lead lid that is on the flying basket. And when the heavy weight of the lead lid was lifted up, guess what? A woman pops up, sitting in the middle of the basket. Now, I know that the prophetic books are highly symbolic, but if you'll just stay with me, I'll explain every bit of this, and it'll make so much sense to you. And this is illustrating the power of wickedness and sin that is coming forth from this woman. And the image of this woman in the basket is being seen all over the world on what? You guessed it, the flying billboard. And this is that same woman of Revelation chapter 17 called the great harlot of mystery, Babylon the Great. And if you've been studying with us, you already know that Babylon means confusion. And this woman is, make no mistake about it, she is Miss Confusion. That has to do with the kings of the earth, and that entangles and then misleads the people of the earth. And it's flying around, the prophet says, the whole earth. It's just going for everyone to see. I don't know. Have you seen it? We'll find out in a minute. Verse 8. And he, the angel, said to me, this is wickedness. This woman in a basket. It's wickedness. And he cast it, the lead, into the midst of the ephah, the basket, and he cast the weight of the lead upon the mouth thereof, of the basket. In other words, he sealed this wickedness back for who? For you, if you want it to be. Meaning, we have been given power over all this wickedness that's coming, that's in that basket, in the authority and in the name of Jesus Christ. But for those who are not in Christ, this woman in the basket, who is wickedness, God said. He said she is wickedness. For them, the non-believers, this talent of lead that is cast upon the basket will not contain her. Excuse me. Because the wickedness of this woman is so great. That's why God calls her Babylon the Great. That the lead cannot possibly hold the lid down for the unlearned. Can't do it. It's going to get you. That's what it boils down to. But who is this wicked woman in the basket? And from here on out, listen tight. You're going to have to listen to this one a couple times probably, maybe 3, to get it all. It's very informative, okay? Who is this wicked woman in the basket? She is the filthy, false church of Satan. In other words, the wicked woman in the basket is the anti-bride of the Antichrist. It's Satan's church and his followers. And it's coming, friend, who have been deceived by the false Christ, who is Satan in his role as Antichrist. And we can get a very descriptive look at this woman, Satan's church, who is the woman, wicked woman in the basket. And it's found in Revelation chapter 17. So put a marker in Zechariah and flip over to Revelation 17, because we're going to be there for just a little bit, and where we're going to get a real good look at the old mother of harlots and abomination of the earth. Revelation chapter 17. While you're going there, let's take a L'chaim break, shall we? L'chaim to life. Amen. Are you there? All right. My brother Steve out there in Colorado, he writes us. And he's become a real good friend to this ministry. He watches every week, and he says, "Man, this is just getting gooder and gooder." I love you, man. I love how you write. So, Revelation chapter 17 and verse 1. The Apostle John speaking here. And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, and this is just before the return of Christ, and he says to me, "Come hither, come here, John. Come here, and I'll show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon the many waters." Now, all right, if you don't know what the many waters are, okay, then you don't understand the verse, all right? But as I've told you before, whenever a prophet's writing, especially in the book of Revelation, same with all the prophetic writings, when they give you a symbolic thing like this great whore sitting on many waters, if you just stick with the scripture, don't quit and say, "I don't get it, I can't understand it." No. You keep on reading. And if you keep on reading long enough, God, through the power of the Holy Spirit and the writers of the prophets, will explain to you what the symbolism meant. He doesn't leave you hanging. So we're going to continue on. Let's read 1 again. John speaking, "And there came one of the 7 angels, which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, come here, and I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters." And again, what do the waters represent? So you just keep on reading, okay? And look, in this same chapter, in verse 17, the angel explains the symbolism of the waters. Look right on down. You're in 17. Look down at 17. "And he saith to me, The waters which thou sawest are peoples, nations, and tongues." So Satan's church will have tremendous influence and power over the vast majority of the people on the earth when it's finally set up. Does that make sense? That's who the waters are. Peoples, nations, and tongues. Now back to verse 2. Who's she going to have influence with? "With whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication. And the inhabitants of the earth," that's the folks that aren't saved, that don't know the word, "have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. Now, understand, this is not a natural fornication. This is a spiritual fornication that is taking place here. And spiritual fornication is idolatry. All right? And spiritual fornication, also spiritual adultery, is the worshiping of false gods. And God absolutely hates it. So there's nothing new under the sun, friend. And this spiritual fornication, this idolatry has been going on since the beginning of time. But it shows up in a major way right here at the very end of the flesh age, and it lies just in our immediate future. When Satan stands on Mount Zion and declares himself to be God before the whole earth, and you can find that recorded in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, Paul writings. That's exactly what Satan's going to do. He's going to declare himself to be God while he's standing in front of his church on those cameras that go up to that satellite, and it's beamed out of that big billboard into every house and every hut and to all the people in the whole world. Does that make sense? Now, this prophet that saw this, it was 2,500 years ago. He saw this flying roll and this, flying billboard and this woman in a basket. But 2,500 years later, he did a really good job explaining it, really, with what he had to go with from 2,500 years ago. Can you see the satellite and the billboard? Sure you can. The television set and all the trash that's on it now, you can see it. It's here. Amen. So, spiritual adultery and spiritual fornication, once again, is the worshiping of false gods, idolatry. All right? And so, verse 3. So, he carried me away in the Spirit into the wilderness. And I saw a woman set upon a scarlet beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And this is the same woman that we read about in Zechariah 5 and verse 8. When the angel said to Zechariah, "This is wickedness." Now, this beast that the woman is sitting on happens to be the first beast. There are 2 in this chapter. First beast that is mentioned in Revelation chapter 13 verse 1 with the 7 heads and the 10 horns that make up something, that make up the one world political system of Satan in the end times. It's globalism. And John sees the woman riding this beast. She's riding the one world political system. When you're riding something, you're guiding it. You understand? And this woman, who represents the false church of the end time, who is going to hook up with this one world political system, and then they are both going to hook up with Satan as their great leader. And it's going to be, make no mistake about it, an unholy triangle for sure. And what will they do? Get this. What will they do after they all get hooked up together? Why? They're having church, of course. It is something to behold. Just look at how this woman, this anti-bride of Antichrist in verse 4 is arrayed. Verse 4, look at it. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and it was just so royal and regal. And she was decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. It was just all beautiful. With all the matching choir robes and the turned around collars with the orchestra and the heavenly singers. It was something to behold. And she had a golden cup in her hand. It was all just so magnificent. So it seems. One problem. Finish the verse. This golden cup she has in her hand, look at it and read it for yourself, is full. It ain't half full. It's full of the abominations and filthiness of her fornication, of her spiritual fornication, of her idolatry, as she worships the false god who is Satan, and leads the people to do so with the organ music and the whole 9 yards. Oh, it's going to be fantastic. And there's something else you can tell from this. You can tell that this false church, okay, is very, very wealthy. And it's into a lot of religious rites and a lot of religious symbols. Hey, it has all the trappings, friend, if you don't know what to look for. It has all the trappings if you don't understand the truth. And listen, that's not all. Over in Thessalonians 2, it says that, hey, Paul writes and says that when Satan gets here playing God, he can just snap his fingers and call fire down from heaven. Wham! So to the unlearned and the biblically ignorant, hey, it looks like a church, it smells like a church, it walked and sing like a church, it gotta be church. Yeah, it's a church, all right. It's the church of Satan. Now, I went to church all my life, all right, from the time I was born till, I never was out of it hardly. I never had anybody ever tell me any of this, okay? And here I am living in the last generation. Can you imagine how many billions of people do not understand that Satan, when he gets here, is going to be the right reverend, preaching what he calls the truth to billions of people who don't know any different? That's why, listen to me, election. I know you're out there. You write me letters. Our audience is full of God's election. I'm so thankful for it. That's why, fellow elect, we are going to be led up to bring a testimony against this false Messiah, against this false church, against this false system, when we are called up before them to give a testimony against them. And that is when we don't speak. That's when Jesus said, you don't even think about what you're going to say. You don't premeditate anything, for the Holy Spirit will use your body and your tongue, and He'll speak through you. And then billions of people who are watching this billboard go by, if they're watching these trials, and I guarantee you they'll be trumped up. They'll be trumped up big time, because we will be the opposition. We will be the resistance to Satan and his church. It's okay. He can't lay a hand on a hair on our head, according to what Jesus said. But this is what's going to happen. And it's going to be in front of this false God, this false church, and blah, 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 and down the line, and that's who the elect are. That's what we're getting ready for. That's why I'm putting out the truth as hard and as fast as I can to help get us all ready, okay, for this time. And believe me, the world don't think this is coming, but it's coming. And when you see what's coming across the billboard as of late, come on and tell me we're not watching that billboard right now. I know we are. Amen. Verse 5. Oh, and like Steve said, it's gooder and gooder. Check this out. Verse 5. And upon her forehead, was a name written. Say these 4 words with me. Mystery, Babylon the Great. The mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So this church is the mother of spiritual harlots. In other words, she's been around a while. This ain't her first rodeo. No. And if you fast forward to verse 18, you find that this woman is also called a city. Let's read it. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. Don't read over that. Over the kings of the earth? Woo! That's a lot of torque, baby. That's a lot of power. But why does God call her a city? Because a city is a specific group of people in a specific place. And this specific group of people obviously has tremendous influence over the people of this earth. So this woman, this city, this group of people is the church, where the false religion of Antichrist will be peddled and pushed from. Okay? And God calls this false church Mystery Babylon the Great. Say it with me out there. Mystery Babylon the Great. Man, I used to read that. I thought, I don't even know what that is. And I didn't know what that was. You know what I'm saying? She's called Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I'm gonna open this mystery up and let you look at it, okay? So why does God call her Mystery Babylon the Great? Would you like to know? It's because He wants to draw a parallel. Listen closely. Between what happened in ancient Babylon and what is going to happen in this false church of our time. It's so you can look into the past and see what is about to take place in our immediate future. But this one will be the greatest of all. So wrapped up in Israel's history is prophecy for us today. In other words, it's God telling us that history, which is His story, repeats itself over and over, and that we are supposed to watch for those reoccurring patterns, all right? And to see what happened in ancient Babylon, you've got to go all the way back to the time of Noah. That's way back there. And here comes a quick run-through of biblical history between Genesis chapter 9 and Genesis chapter 11. Are you ready for it? Are you ready? Okay? Let's take a L'chaim break first. And then I'll be ready. L'chaim to life. So here's the quick history between Genesis 9 and Genesis 10, beginning in chapter 9. Noah's ark lands, floods over, and Noah plants a vineyard, and he makes his own wine, and he gets intoxicated and passes out. That's Genesis 9 and verse 20. Hey, the guy had a lot of pressure on him, okay? And Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And while Noah was passed out, his son Ham uncovered his father's nakedness. That's Genesis 9 and verse 21. And according to Moses in Leviticus 20 and verse 11, to uncover your father's nakedness points to the son that lies with his father's wife. You get that? So it was real life. And that was Ham. Okay? And later, when Noah found out about it, what did he do? He cursed Ham, and he cursed his descendants. The law said, later when Moses wrote the law, he said you're supposed to kill him. But then, Noah put the curse on him. And right here is where our connection with ancient Babylon actually begins. Listen closely. You see, Ham had a son named Cush. And Cush had a son named Nimrod, who began to be a mighty one in the earth. That's from Genesis 10:8, who was the founder and the king, listen to this, of the very first world empire to exist after Noah's flood. And Nimrod was so arrogant and so cocky that he threatened to have revenge on God if God ever wished to flood the earth again. So in defiance against God, Nimrod built a tower. It's called the Tower of Babel. Higher than the water could reach, to avenge the destruction of their forefathers, and the people were all too eager to follow his advice and help him. Okay? Deeming it slavery to submit to God. And the Bible says that Nimrod's rebellion spread among all nations of the then known world, and all the world at that time was of one language. That's Genesis 11:6. And then God came down and saw that the people were of one mind and one language. And I'll pick it up in Genesis 11, verse 7. And the Lord said, let us go down there and confound their languages, that they may not understand one another's speech. Verse 8. So the Lord scattered them abroad from thence upon the face of the earth, and they left off to build a city. They quit because they couldn't communicate. Verse 9, and why we came here. Therefore is the name of the tower called Babel, which means confusion, because the Lord there did confound their language of all the earth. And from thence did the Lord scatter them abroad upon the face of the earth. And all this happened, ladies and gentlemen, some 4,200 years ago. But just look at the parallel between then and now. You see, old Nimrod so wanted to be God himself and to be worshiped like God, that he convinced the people of the world to build this tower to heaven, and it rose with a speed beyond all expectations. And Nimrod rebelled against God and his sovereignty, and the people went with him, which is exactly what Satan, in his role as Antichrist, is going to do when he arrives. So can you see the similarity between what happened at the original Tower of Babel and what's about to happen with this mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth? Can you see it? It's there, friends. And again, ladies and gentlemen, what has happened will happen again. And we in this generation have a front row seat. And so now let's go back to Zechariah chapter 5, and we'll pick it back up where we left off in verse 8. This time with much more understanding. And he, the angel, said to me, Zechariah, this is wickedness. And he cast it into the midst of the ephah, and he cast the weight of the lid upon the mouth thereof. Verse 9. Then lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came out not one, but two women. Woo-wee. Now some earlier scholars from a different period, they think this is two nations, but I don't think so. Watch. There came out two women, and the wind, that's the wicked spirit, that's the wicked ruach in them, in those two women, okay, that was in their wings. You understand? And I believe that these two women represents the level of wickedness at that time. In other words, when we get to that time, my friend, it's going to be double the trouble. Double trouble when we get to that point. With the wicked being the overwhelming majority at the time of the end. Can you see it going on? They're trying to take over our country. But I'm going to tell you something. They've already got most of the rest of the world. This is the last bastion of freedom. This is the last bastion of hope where we are in America, which is prophetic Israel. All right? So it's happening, and it's closing in around us. But it is going to happen. Okay? And with the wicked being the overwhelming majority at the time of the end. The only ones that aren't going to get hacked, or aren't going to get wiped out are the elect. Okay? And I told you before, I'm not Dr. Feelgood, but I am the guy that tells you the truth. Okay? And I'm also the guy that tells you you can overcome every last bit of it because God and His Son Jesus said we can. Amen. Continue verse 9. Let's just read the whole verse again. Then lifted up mine eyes and looked, and behold, there came out two women. And the wind, okay, that was in their wings, all right, for they had wings like wings of a stork. And a stork is a nasty, dirty bird. But they have very large and very powerful wings, which tells me when this wickedness, this whole thing gets started, okay, it's going to happen very, very quickly. It won't take long. In fact, it'll be here and gone before most people even know it. Okay? Which is why you can't fool around to get ready. You need to get ready now. Don't put it off till the last moment, foolish virgin. You see, oil is symbolic of truth. There were 10 of those virgins. 5 were wise. 5 were foolish. 5 took enough oil. 5 didn't. 5 had enough truth to make it all the way to the end, to make it through all of this stuff. The other 5 didn't have enough truth to overcome. That's what Jesus is talking about, to get ready. Verse 9, and they lifted up, the storks, the dirty birds, lifted up the ephah, the basket that the two women are in, between the heaven and the earth, still flying around. And now you know what's showing on this 15 by 30 foot billboard. Old Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of spiritual harlots, and the curse that comes along with worshiping her. Does that make sense? All right. And right there it sits today, ladies and gentlemen, as it orbits around the earth for all to see. This sign, this billboard of wickedness, and I asked you earlier, have you seen it? And if you haven't, here's how you recognize it. Anyone or anything that tries to remove you from God and what He said is a part of that wickedness. Any system or organization that tries to lift God out of your life and your vocabulary, that wants to take God's name off your money and kick Him out of our courthouses and take His name out of our prayers, is part of that wicked system. Those that turn right into wrong and wrong into right, judges that will not convict criminals and take them off the street, universities that kicked God out a long time ago and all they teach is humanism, and public schools that won't allow students to pray to God or read their Bibles at school, are all a part of that wicked element. I'm telling you, it's wickedness we're looking at, that the angel showed Zechariah in all these visions. Those that break God's commandments. And all this is the sin aspect of the world. And you are either for God or you are against God. And if you are against God, you will be cursed. There ain't no ifs, ands, or buts. You will be cursed, and you will, in the end, if you don't repent, be destroyed. So just remember, and look up once in a while. Get him. I hear my dog out there. And look up at that billboard once in a while and be aware of it. Know that it's there and teach and warn your children about it and your family. This morning I got up 5 o'clock. I shot out the back door of the house, in between the house and the barn. I was praying. I was leaning into it. Spending some time with the Father. But I'd been on this satellite thing all week. Well, really, I got about 2 weeks in it, just at different times. But I had that in my mind when I went out to pray. Because I always pray and ask God for His presence to be with us when we tape. and His anointing to be with us, so that that you understand. I try to make it where you can understand it. Okay, so I'm out there and I'm praying these prayers, and I'm praying for you all out there and that are watching by TV or phone, whatever. And all of a sudden I look up and I see a whole string of satellites. Not one, not two, not three, not four, not five. I can keep on counting, and I can get you up to what I know is at least over 24. And they were in single file, in perfect formation, with the exact distance between each one of them. And I watched them travel from the northwest, going southeast, and the beautiful string all the way across till it got out of sight. I must have watched it for 5 or 6 minutes before they were gone. I thought they were satellites, and they are satellites, but I didn't know that was up there. And so we looked it up on the internet, and it's called starlight effect. It's when they shoot a satellite up from the Earth, and as it's trying to get to its orbit, that's when it's seen down here. Now, some of them you can see after they're in orbit. Okay, I think these probably were all in orbit, but it was magnificent to look at, and I thought, wow, there goes the old billboard. I'm right out here to catch it. Hallelujah. Thank you, Jesus. God is so good, Hallelujah. We got 2 more verses. Let's finish them. Verse 10. Then said I, Zechariah, to the angel that talked with me, whether do these bear the ephah? In other words, what are they going to do with it? Verse 11. And he said unto me, to build it an house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base. So it's a church, and he uses the land of Shinar to say where it's going to be set. And do you know where Shinar is? My son-in-law and daughter is here tonight. They're part of our team. And my son-in-law will know all about this because of the war he was in 2003 and 4. Listen to this. Let's read it again. And he said to me, to build it an house in the land of Shinar, and it shall be established and set there upon her own base. And Shinar, in the Hebrew, it means the land of 2 rivers. And you know what 2 it is. It's the Tigris and the Euphrates, and you were there. And we were praying for you. Hallelujah. God answers our prayers because you got back home. Hallelujah. And these 2 rivers, listen to me real close as I finish this up. And these 2 rivers flow through what is now modern-day Iraq. And modern-day Iraq just happens to be the ancient empire of Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar's rule, who conquered ancient Judah, God's people, and took the Jewish people back to Babylon and made them slaves, all this happening around 600 BC. Okay, you with me? And where was the United States military stationed in a war that lasted from 2003? We didn't get out of there until 2011. They were in what? Iraq, which is ancient Babylon. Listen closely. So whether it was Nimrod or Nebuchadnezzar or Saddam Hussein, the story is always the same for Babylon. All 3 groups, 4,200 years ago, from now, 600 years BC, and in 2003, all 3 groups, Nebuchadnezzar, Nimrod, and Saddam Hussein were worshiping a false god. Do you understand? Committing spiritual fornication. Again, watch for these reoccurring patterns when you're studying your Bible. They're telling you something. God is telling you something. And this pattern we have studied today is one of the biggies. Okay? And here's why. Because this house of wickedness will be allowed to be built. We just read it. God said He's going to let it happen. It's going to be allowed to be built one more time, and once only, in a spiritual sense, in order to fulfill the time of the Gentiles. And then will come the end of the flesh age. So be alert and learn and be aware of what that curse is that goes around the nation, and make sure you're not a part of that curse, but rather be a part of the solution. Draw that line in the sand, ladies and gentlemen, and don't cross it. And take care of business with anyone or anyone that tries to cross that line. You got to take a stand. Hallelujah. And I know this was pretty detailed, but I hope you enjoyed this lecture. And like I said before, you may want to go back and listen to it again, because there is so much information here that it's hard to catch it all in one viewing. And now, I want to send a big shout out to Deanne and Michael and Trey and Lauren, who are all watching Dove Point Bible Study every week from Madison, North Carolina. Thank you very much. And thank you, Deanne, for your letter, your kind words, your encouragement, and your generosity. It is greatly appreciated. And we, too, look forward to meeting you and your family in the very, very near future. And we send our love to your family as well. I really enjoyed your letter. It was a blessing to me. Also, Deanne, we're going to send you some of our lecture outlines, illustrations, and maps that I think you and your family might really enjoy. Hallelujah. And if you would like to write and share what the Lord is doing in your life, okay, we would love to hear from you. We really would. I love hearing from the different parts of the country. If that's you, just send it to this address right here. And tell a friend about us. Won't you do that? And hit that subscribe button, please. And you don't want to miss the next lecture, as the prophet Zechariah has his 8th vision from God, the vision of the 4 chariots sent from heaven to execute judgment on the whole earth, that brings an end to the flesh age. And this lecture will answer a whole lot of questions about a whole lot of people have. Okay? So don't miss this one. I thank you for tuning in. We love you all. We really do. Until next time, my friends, shalom and shalom.